Now,
Persons, we're on now Daf Yud Gimel 13. Ha'omer tnu get zelish. He says to a shaliach, bring this get to my wife. Or shtar shechur zela abu. Bring this freedom document to my Evan. Umeis. He dies before they could carry out the shlichus. Lo yitnu lachar misa. It doesn't work anymore. There's no chalois unless he was alive to be makne'id. But if he said tnu mana leish ploini, he said give $1,000 to Chaim Yankel. Umeis yitnu lachar misa. You're allowed to give a gift even after misa. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta mishmei dera. However, v'hu shetzibur menachem b'keren zagid. That which he gave a command to give, verbal command to give money, and we do it after his death, that money has been piled up in a corner somewhere. It was designated somewhere when he gave that command. Now, I don't understand, says the Gemara Skina. Ilema Bibori, if this guy's a healthy guy, so Kitzibur in Mahavya. So who cares that if this money's been piled up? What kinyan happened here? Haloi Moshach. Remember, in halacha, if you're going to give something to somebody, there's got to be a kinyan. Now, if you write a shtar and you say, I'm giving this, so you have a shtar matana, which is witnessed. So that's one mechanism to give something to somebody. But if I want to give something to somebody, so he has to do an act of kinyan. He has to draw it to him or lift it. What kinyan was done here when the person said, give this to this guy? If he's a healthy guy, it doesn't help that the fact that the money was sitting in a corner. The guy didn't do Mashicha. He's not Zoichem in a movable object without some kind of kinyan. Ela b'shchiv mera. We're talking about a guy on his deathbed, where when a shchiv mera gives a command, it's as if it is written as a shtar. So my area tziburin. Why would we need the money in a corner? Any of his assets would be able to be given. He ain't tzibur nami. The hakaimelan, the different shchiv mera kiksuvim, the kimsrim dami. When a person on his deathbed gives a verbal command to give something from his assets, it's as if it was written in the shtar, and you don't need a kinyan. On Razvid Loilam Bibari, we're talking about not a shchiv mera, a healthy person. This is a famous case. Reuven and Shimon and Levi. Shimon owes Reuven money. Reuven can tell Shimon, you owe me $100. That $100, Tneo Leploini. Give it to Levi. B'maimid shloishton. If all three of them are together, kana. Even it's a verbal statement, it has not been written. So this Mishnah, the way the Gemara is explaining now, is talking when he said, give this to such and such person, it was mana libiyotcha, tnei lo leploin b'maimin shloishton. Because that's an exception to the rule by a bori, according to Rav Unamara. Rav Papa Amar, no. Loilam b'shchiv mera, talking about a guy in his deathbed. Uki idich Rav, and another halach of Rav, Amar Rav, shchiv mera she'amar tnu mana leploini min achosai. Give $100 to Chaim Yankel for my assets. If he said mana zeh, if he specifically pointed to a certain mana, then noisne. Mana stam, if it's just $100 generally, ain't noisne. Because chayshinan shema mana cover ka'amar. There's always a possibility that he had his mind on a specific mana that was buried somewhere, and we don't know where it is. and therefore we shouldn't give the other $100. So that's why our Mishnah is a similar case, where it has to be $100 in a certain corner. V'hilchasa l'kvura loy chashinan. We're not concerned about possibly when a person, a shchivra said, give $100, we're not worried that he had some buried treasure somewhere. We're not worried about that. And therefore the halacha is the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. Shchivra, if Shchivra said, give $100 to Chaim Yankel, noistim loy. Whether he said Mona Zeh or Mona Stam. And we're not worried that maybe he was referring to some buried treasure somewhere. Rav Papa, my time 11 Krav Zvid. Now, why was Rav Papa forced to learn it that we're talking about a Shchivra and not like Rav Huna Amarav of, Manali Biyadcha Tnei Lo Plan V'Mam and Shloishta? Why can't Rav Papa learn like Rav Zvid? Yud Gimel Amid Beis. Ksav Rav Papa. Stiyam Rav. That this process of Reuben, Shimon, and Levi, Lo Shna B'Milva V'Lo Shna B'Pikadon. It's not a good explanation of our Mishnah because he didn't require it to be somewhere. It could be a loan where there is no money extant anywhere. He just owes it. Or an object that I deposited with Shimon. And I say, instead of giving it back to me, give it to Levi. So the money didn't have to be put in a corner somewhere. That's why Rav Papa had to come up with a different shot, according to the second, where we said like a Shchivra. And Rav Zvid, my time 11 Rav Papa. Why didn't Rav Zvid want to learn like a Shchivra? Lo mituk b'mastis b'Shchivra. It didn't make sense to him in terms of the language of our Mishnah that it was talking about a Shchivra. Mimai. How did he know that? Midiktani. From the fact that the language of the Mishnah said, Ha'oimer tnu get zeli ishti, ushtar shikr zela avdi. And then umeis, lo yitnu lachar misa. Taima shemeis. The reason we don't give it because he died. Ha mechaim, if he would have stayed alive, noisnim, even while he was alive. So taima tnu, that's because he said give. Ha imlo amar tnu. Let's say he only said kisvu get, not kisvu and give it. Ain't noisnim. But a shchivmera, afagav shalo amar tnu, even if he just said kisvu, noisnin. So Rav Zvid said our Mishnah cannot be it. It's a shchivmera. Because it worked even with you just said tnu. It's not. Somebody was convicted of having his head cut off by the government. And they're walking him through the streets. They used to put him on chains. And while he's walking, he calls out to somebody in the crowd. He doesn't want his wife to fall to Yibum. So he says, Kisvu get ishti. But he doesn't say Kisvu utnu. He says, write again. The din is already elu yichtavu v'yitnu. Even though they didn't say tnu. We understand that that's what his intent was. I was chazru loymar. Af b'mefarish. Somebody's going on a long ocean voyage or going on a caravan. And he gives his wife a get, and he just says, hisfu, but not tnu, we know what he means. He wanted to divorce his wife so that she wouldn't fall to Yibum in case he dies. Rav Shimon Shazuri or Afa Mesukim, somebody who is sick, who's going to die. So a shchivaro does not have to say tnu, it's enough to say kisfu. The fact that our Mishnah was medaik and said tnu, he didn't want to learn our Mishnah like a shchivaro. Maskil Ravashi, Uman name Allah the Masnis Rav Shimon Shizuri. Who says that our Mishnah is Rav Shimon Shizuri that advanced this notion even by a Mesukin? The Amarabonani. You do not count Mesukin. So you could explain our Mishnah like a Shchibara, the way Rav Papa did. Gufa. Okay, let's go into detail that which we mentioned in passing. Shom Ravun Amarav, Manali Biyatcha Tnei Ploini, the Mavin Shlosh and Kana. Reuven and Shimon. Shimon owes Reuven $1,000. Reuven tells Shimon, rather than give the $1,000 to me, give it to Levi. If they're all three together, it works. Which is interesting because there's no kinyan here. Amar of Mistavra Milsa, the Rav, the Picado. We're talking about not money. Reuven had given Shimon something to watch, and he tells it, instead of giving it back to me, give it to Levi. Ava b'mal velo. But if it's just a debt, you cannot transfer it that way. The Elohim, Amar Rav afilu b'mal. Rav says it worked even by a debt. Itmarnami Amar Shmuel Mishmei Levi. Mal v'li b'yadcha tnei lo leplomi. You owe me $1,000, give it to Levi. Imam Shloshtan Kana. How does this work? It's as if when Reuven had advanced the money to Shimon, it was as if Levi was there at the time. And the fact that you have a shibud where you owe me, it's not just you owe me to anybody I tell you to give it to that comes from my direction. And it was as if all three of them were together with the koyach of the mouth. What about he made this kinyan to newborns who were not even in the world at the time when this loan was made. So you're going to tell me Ochanami de Loikanu? I know it doesn't work. We have a machloikas between Rab Meir and the Chachamim whether you can do a kinyan that doesn't exist in the world yet, like fruit that hasn't grown from a tree. Can you sell that or not? So Rab Meir says you can. Chachamim say you can. Now, the debate is animili ledavar sheyesh leboim. Aval ledavar she'ena ba'olam at all. Lo, it cannot be maknid. And Rav said a general term that this din of this kinyan of Shmai Mishloshton can occur even for people who aren't even born yet, and therefore it's not connected to a shibud that was there at the time that money was funded to Shimon. Ravashi, we're going to have to come up with another svara of how this kinyan works. The kinyan of Maimed Shloshton, which is an important kinyan in Choshen Mishpat, in how we're marking things to people. Okay, everybody, have
Tomorrow,